All right, good afternoon. We are here today with Mr. Hassiba Braggs. I am so excited to welcome another legacy leader. We are going to highlight some of the things that he's doing in his community, and then we're going to ask our restorative questions because we are always interested in making sure that we build community through connections and checking in. And so all of the interviews that I have had so far use restorative questions that come from the International Institute of Restorative Practices, who is the only graduate school that is focused on specifically teaching others about restorative practices and how important it is to build community, build relationships with all stakeholders from parents to students to um, staff members in the school community, but just anywhere in the country. There's lots of organizations connected with the International Institute of Restorative Practices. So thank you, Mr. Braggs, for being here today.
You're welcome.
Um,
You're welcome.
yeah, you are brother-in-law to Alita Harris, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, she is one of
Yep.
our FCAC sorors and Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So I appreciate her reference, and I'm glad that you were able to join us. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from Stockbridge, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been living here in Stockbridge for about 22, about 20 years.
All right, is that where you're originally from?
Originally from Chicago, born and raised in Chicago, and I moved here, moved around a little bit after college, but I settled here and haven't left.
All right, where'd you go to school?
I went to undergrad at Hampton University in Virginia.
All right.
And then I went to graduate school at Ohio University to get my first master's degree in sports administration. And then I got an MBA from Keller Graduate School here in Atlanta.
All right, awesome. That is outstanding. I have to give a special shout out to Hampton University. I am a graduate of Howard University, but my daughter is a senior, class of 2020.
Hey,
She is headed to Hampton University in the fall.
okay,
So she's
awesome.
excited. So just tell the audience then. I have a lot of Hampton friends as well. And we always have that rivalry. I can't wait to do it with my daughter. So tell us the best thing for you about Hampton University.
Coming from Chicago, I grew up in Inglewood, which is a tough, rough part of the city, and getting in an environment where people were a lot different from me, come from different areas, and seeing what I could be in 15 years was really enlightening. So getting away from my environment was awesome. Getting in an environment where so many people from the East Coast, because I grew up in the Midwest, New York and DC, Philadelphia, and I was always intrigued by that. And once I got to know a lot of those folks, it was just interesting getting out of the Midwest and hanging out with people from other parts of the country.
Awesome. Well, since you mentioned my hometown, I'll say Philadelphia, go Eagles, go Birds. Um,
Right.
that's exciting. Well, I am excited to have a Hampton University grad on this. I can't
Yeah.
share that with my daughter as well. So just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the restorative questions and the interview questions about
Yeah.
certain things. Tell me about yourself, your background, your career interests, anything that you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. As I said, I grew up in Chicago and on the South Side, and went to high school there, and just I have two brothers and a sister. And when I was in high school, I started was a vendor at the baseball game, so selling hot dogs and soda and everything. And then that was really my first job, and I did that all the way every summer through college. And after college, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in sports. I didn't really have any outlets for that. I kind of met somebody who worked for the team, and he kind of put me on, and eventually one thing led to another, and the team started. They had a scholarship, and I was able to get a scholarship to Ohio University to get a graduate degree in sports administration. And it was interesting because I survived through undergrad, through student loans and financial aid and everything. By the time I got that scholarship, I mean, everything was paid. The owner of the Chicago White Sox, who also owns the Bulls, paid my tuition, room, board, books, stipend, car insurance, the whole nine. So that opened up another door for me. Worked there for a little while, got an internship with them, moved on to work in Lexington, Kentucky, Worked there for about a year or so, then moved to Atlanta and worked for Georgia State University in the athletic department. I was director of marketing, moved away from there and worked for a place called ESPN Zone, which opened up
Oh,
in Atlanta. They had one in Baltimore, one in DC.
right.
And so I just had kept taking these small wins until I left the ESPN Zone, started, working for another company, started working for Longhorn Steakhouse in the food space, started working then for Outback Steakhouse. So just jumped headfirst into the restaurant space. And so after a few restaurant companies, I kind of ended up, which is where I work now for Golden Corral as National Director of Field Marketing. So I help um, companies or help the restaurants generate sales and grow their market from where they are based on our national messaging. So it's been good. I have a lot of things that I do for my job, but then outside of my job, I actually referee college basketball, which is pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. And then I do some marketing consulting on the side. I've written a book, as I was talking to you about it earlier. So I have a busy life. I have two daughters. One of them is at Florida A&M.
Nice.
She's a sophomore. The other one is a sophomore in high school. They're both very smart, and so I have a busy life and a full plate.
Very nice. Very nice. And so you mentioned a book. Can you tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about the title of your book and the interest?
Yeah, it's called the Own Your Mile Marketing Playbook, and I always say it's about becoming the CMO or chief mile owner for your small business. And what small businesses tend to do is try to emulate or copy what the big businesses are doing. Big businesses have big budgets and big staffs, and what I found when I worked for a big business is that they spent a lot of money and they didn't really know whether their marketing really worked. And so if so you don't have a lot of money and you're doing the things that the bigger companies are doing, your marketing probably isn't working. And so I wrote a book to kind of debunk some of the theories and some of the strategies that some of the bigger companies are doing. And so it's the first book I've ever written. It took some time to write, and but it's a, a culmination of all the things I've done and all the resources that I've kind of gathered over the last 20 years.
Very nice. I definitely am interested in writing a book. I think I have two titles in mind. Dr. Stewart, because my maiden name is Stewart, and I felt like I've worked so hard all of my life prior to getting married for the first time and becoming Dr. Beck. I was Dr. Stewart, and so I want to kind of write about that journey to becoming Dr. Beck through,
Yeah.
Dr. Stewart. And I'm working on my doctorate and I don't have it yet. And so that's kind of been the journey for me. So that's one. And then listen would be another one. I think the reason why that I'm so
Okay.
passionate about restorative practices is because I love to build community. And I think you build community through a listening culture. Being an administrator who has served in many schools, I think the most important thing that you could do for any, and you know this, I guess, working in the business world, is how important listening is and getting that feedback to others
Sure.
to shape your product. And so that's the same thing, I think. So thank you for that. I appreciate what as a business person, you're a director in the business world. What are some things that are important to you as core values in terms of that team that you're building or working with?
Yeah, you just mentioned it, listening. We I deal with a franchise community, and those are people that have paid their money to buy into, whether it was a Golden Corral or an Outback or whatever. And so you have to, they think they're leaning on you for your expertise, but
Right,
they also think they know what's best for their business.
right.
So there's a balancing act, and you don't try to boss them, but you try to influence them and you try to show them your credibility. In fact, I always say you have to lead with credibility. And so that's one of the best things I can do is listen. But the other thing I can always do is be on time, be credible, respond to their emails, and just be professional. One of the, but and I always also say be firm but fair. They want you to give them reasons to do what they already want to do, but
That's funny.
but uh, but you have to sometimes be willing to have a tough conversation. And
Absolutely.
if you've earned that right, if you've earned your stripes, so to speak, they'll respect what you say.
Absolutely. In the education world, we call those courageous conversations.
Yeah,
Whether you are
definitely courageous.
And
definitely courageous.
whether you're the phenomenal teacher who has all the things right in the evaluation process,
Right.
have the same kind of courageous conversations as we would with a teacher that we need to support. And that's kind of what restorative practices is all about, is that high expectations and high control combined with how do you support someone in getting there or maintaining it. And so the teacher who's already performing at a high level, we want them to maintain that level. And the person that is maybe needing some areas of growth, how do we support them in getting there? So I think all education,
Right.
all different systems and organizations are connected through restorative practices, which is why I find it to be so interesting and why I appreciate the work. And so now we're going into our restorative questions. And the first question is related to kind of the crises and how you see things. And so what have you been thinking about as the crisis or the pandemic continues to unfold?
Yeah. The major thing is because Golden Corral is a buffet, how are people going to respond to buffet restaurants?
Oh, good question. Good thought.
How long is it going to take for us to kind of get back where we were? Um, and then the other part of it is, what is the business going to look like 2-3 years from now? So just my concern is future state. What is everything going to look like? You know, some of our restaurant competitors. I mean, they're never going to miss a beat.
Right.
Chick-fil-A is not going to miss a beat. Wendy's won't miss a beat. Taco Bell, whomever, they won't miss a beat because they've already set up with drive-throughs and stuff. But for a restaurant that's dependent upon you walking in and having an experience, it's interesting. You
Yeah,
know,
I would agree. I think, Golden Corral, from band trips with the Howard University Showtime Marching Band, Golden
yeah,
Corral was one of our
yeah,
spots that we would, frequent on our trips in different states. And I think that family style feel is what we appreciated about that. When you think about community, you think about family.
yeah,
So, yeah, I'm hopeful that people won't be fearful of those types of experiences, but I can see how that could be a major concern for you right now.
yeah.
What has been the hardest thing for you?
Uh, I've been working with operators for the last 15, 20 years and not having that everyday interaction with them. It's tough. I mean, that's how we interact. And every day is a different day. And so when you don't have that challenge to work with them and work through their problems, it's a little bit nerve wracking.
Absolutely. Yes. I think most people that I have interviewed so far, or even the people that I speak with, are very, it's hard not connecting and
Yeah,
that pause and being still and being, unclear and having uncertainties that drives a little bit of anxiety and angst for most people. So I can definitely understand that. So, thinking creatively and thinking outside of the box, what are some things that you're doing to inspire, to build community, to remain positive in the midst of all of this?
well, one thing I do uh, is I take care of myself. I take care of my body. I work out. I try to eat right and try to get enough rest. The other thing is I read and I stay sharp and stay current on marketing and doing things like this. I'm getting ready to start a membership site for people who are restaurateurs who need marketing help. And I've got a blog that I work on. I've got a website that I've developed. And so those are the kinds of things that fill my days. I'm always looking for to learn. I'm actually for a couple of weeks at least was trying to learn Spanish, but then the marketing took over. So
Yeah.
uh, trying to evolve, continue to evolve, and being a positive influence on the environment.
Yeah, definitely. I have been doing and participating in a lot of professional learning, whether I'm facilitating it, more so for my own personal growth. I've been signing up to be a part of
Yeah,
when I have time on my schedule at work to be a part of a professional learning that helps me strengthen the craft that I'm currently doing. And so,
sure,
yeah,
sure.
so I definitely agree with you on that one. Are you reading anything specific that's been really good that you want to share?
Man, man, I am a big reader. One of my favorite books is called. I'm a big Malcolm Gladwell fan.
Okay.
Uh, read a book called Robert Collier called The Secret of the Ages. Kind of go back to that. I'm involved in some business books, but I'm a big Malcolm Gladwell fan, and he's got a book called David and Goliath, Tipping Point, and it kind of speaks to approaching things that we've seen in different perspectives. So really interesting stuff. Then I've also caught up on some television. I don't watch a lot, but I've started watching a couple binge watching shows. So, but I have a full plate. My kids have kept me busy doing some of the things they do, but we keep it busy around here. That's for sure.
Absolutely. I remember the tipping point probably from one of my middle school's leadership team's book studies. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
I read the tipping point. I think there was Roberto Clemente Middle School, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, one of my favorite baseball players, actually.
Okay.
Roberto, a super guy, super baseball player, but family man, community servant, absolutely wonderful guy.
Awesome. Awesome. Look at the connection there. Girl, I love it. So I, for self-care, have been doing some things, but I think my creative spirit is what I would appreciate most. So doing things that speak to my natural passions, like Jeneen
Yeah.
cares and mentoring. I'm not school based right now, and so I'm in central office at the Board of Education, and so as a result, I don't have that direct connection to be able to really support students. And so I find that this is an opportunity for me to still pour into students by having videos available when I do start the mentoring again, or to be able to share with them or their parents now to be able to watch and still gain something. And so with that in mind, our last question is related to advice for students. What advice do you have for students? I mean, you've shared a tremendous journey from
Yeah.
yourself coming from Chicago and where you are now. And so, what are some things that you would say to parents or to students in terms of?
Uh, yeah, I was a couple of things. I would say everything matters. I would say everything matters. You may not think the conversation you had with a teacher mattered, but somebody's always watching.
Absolutely.
When I was being evaluated for that scholarship with the Chicago White Sox, I had no idea they were even evaluating me. I was a vendor, and they were talking to my supervisors, they were talking to other vendors, they were talking to people who interacted with me, and they just wanted to know how I would interact in an organization. And so everything matters. How you treat people matters.
Yeah.
And so those are the kinds of things that people remember. So leave a good footprint where you are. Another thing is, uh, don't be afraid to get A's. Don't be afraid to compete to be the best.
Right.
You don't have to. Getting an A and getting high marks is not a bad thing. It's a great thing, actually. So that's what I would tell. And push them. Parents, push them. Don't be afraid to push them. I push my kids. My daughter has a full scholarship now, thank God.
Right.
But we pushed her to do certain things, and we pushed them into different environments. So push your kids. If don't push them away, but just push them. Push them.
Absolutely. I second that emotion. I know for my daughter, she has run track and I'm used to see her coach, and I used to say to her coach, you got to be harder on her, push her. I want
Right,
her to be, yeah. So she's kind of like, Mom, but I agree. I think sometimes we have to make sure we have those high expectations. So
for sure.
do the best that they can and they can remember how important it is to work hard and do well. So thank you. Tell the audience where they can reach you or find is you have a website in terms
I
of.
do have a website. It's ownyourmile.com, ownyourmile.com. You get all the information. I've got a blog. You can get the book. The book is also on Amazon. It's called the Own Your Mile Marketing Playbook by my name, Hassiba Braggs. It's available there. It's also on my website, so I can be reached any kind of way, and look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It always comes from a connection usually. So if you have anyone else who you would like to highlight as a legacy leader based on the conversation that we talked about just now, definitely reach out to me and let me know at Jeneen Cares. Follow me on YouTube, everyone. Jeneen Cares, Jeneen Cares. Caring, achieving, restoring, empowering, and supporting our youth. Thank you.